Welcome back to Adobe Lightroom to Adobe Photoshop, and today we're going to have sort of a fun tutorial, and we're going to take what we've learned in Adobe Lightroom Classic and make some just basic adjustments. Then we're going to take that same image and throw it over into Photoshop. I'm just going to do a little bit to it. I'm not going to explain to you how I'm doing it, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing. And then I'm going to show you how the two programs are integrated together in that you can save a layered Photoshop document and it automatically saves back into Adobe Lightroom with all the adjustments that you made inside of Adobe Photoshop. And you're able to take that same image from Adobe Lightroom Classic, throw it back into Adobe Photoshop. All your layered adjustments will still appear. And that is a process and what we call non-destructive editing. Okay, we are in Lightroom Classic Develop module. Let's go ahead and tackle this image. First thing we're going to do, always do, make sure that you white balance your image. All right, I actually like this a little bit warmer, so I'm going to go with auto, but I'm not going to manipulate anything. I do want to open up the shadows because this is a little dense and dark. So we're going to go ahead and just open this up. So it looks like that. Remember, we can always add contrast back in the end. That's like the final step. So what am I looking at? When I look at an image, I look at this in areas that I need to edit, all right? So right here, it's too bright. So this is what we call hot, and I'm gonna need to darken that. I need to watch this because I don't want to overexpose it. I tend to not like this to be super bright because I want your image to lean in to the subject. I also don't like the yellow color. Maybe we'll switch the yellow color and have a little fun with Photoshop. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to just come in here. We're going to make a selective adjustment. So you'll notice my global adjustments, this is a pretty good exposure. There's not too much to do. So let's go ahead and click this. And we're going to go into sky because, yeah, that's what we need to select. And we're just going to dramatically darken this. All right, that looks better. Next, I'm going to come in here and I want to brighten up this a little bit. And look, there's no great way to do it because I want to avoid the waterfall. I'm going to simply use the brush because it's the easiest thing. Instead of going over here and doing anything amazing, I'm just going to hit the letter K and boom, that brings up my brush. I can brighten it up. I'm just going to take my highlights and boost them up and go like this. Now I'm doing this before I put the mask in so I can kind of see where I'm doing it. I will do this a lot of times. I don't care if it's perfect because essentially I can come back in here and manipulate or change that later. Remember, everything that we do is what we call non-destructive. So I'm just trying to open up these areas in this image. You'll be surprised. Some aspects of masking need to be really exact and some, yeah, they don't need to be very, very exact. So you'll notice that we did do that. Now right here, this area, it's too bright. It's probably not overexposed, but it's an unimportant area and I want to kind of dumb it down and darken it. I'm also going to read this here. 99, 98, yeah, that's pretty bright. So we're going to darken that area down a little bit as well. So let's go ahead. We're going to create a new mask. So just the letter K again. I'm going to come in here and just brush it in that area and this area. I could also use a luminance mask, but this is quicker, so I'm just used to doing it this way. We're going to lower the contrast. So whenever you have a very bright area, you just can't darken the brightness. It doesn't work. You have to lower the contrast and lower the highlights first, okay? And then come in with exposure a little bit. If you do this, it doesn't really darken it very well. All right, so that's good. We've got this darker than it probably needs to be, and we've given this a little detail right here, so we can work with that. And I think I'm going to increase my feather a little bit and just kind of hit that area right there as well. That looks pretty good. I should have made my brush smaller, but I'm not gonna because I don't wanna. And the last thing I'm gonna do here is just maybe darken this a little bit. So I'm gonna hit K again. because we don't need to go anything fancy here, and we're just gonna put in a mask. I'm gonna lower the contrast and lower the highlights and darken that just a little bit. And the idea here is you want to funnel into this location because that's kind of the key element or area of this photo. Now that I look at this, that hand's blown out. And the reason for that is just the angle that the light is hitting it. This is something that happens a lot of times. So I just did Command plus twice, and I'm holding the space bar to move it. I'm going to hit K again, and we're going to come in here and just try to get a little bit of a mask right there on these hot spots. And we're going to do the same thing. Lower the contrast, lower the highlights, darken it. All right, that looks good. We're done. So we'll just hit Command minus minus. So we're going to take this and we're going to throw it into Adobe Photoshop in just a second. We need to make sure that we have some preferences set up correctly. So we're going to go up here to Preferences and open them. So right here we have our external editing. My first one is set up to edit in Photoshop. The second one is set up to go into NIC 8 analog effects. All we care right now is the Photoshop one. So I have Photoshop. I have set this to go into as a PSD, which is a Photoshop file, which supports layers. Not worried about HDR. We have the color space of Adobe 98. We're going to use 16 bits and 300 pixels per inch. If you want to screenshot this, you can. These are my settings that I'm going to use. In this one here, I would do the same thing. I want everything to be exactly the same. In this case, I'm just going to make this a TIFF. The only change is TIFF. That's because I'm not sure they support PSD or not. We're good with this, so we can click out of it. This is really easy. When you're in Lightroom, it is Command or Control E. And that essentially throws the photo over into Adobe Photoshop. So you can see my computer's working. It's going to take this image and put it into Photoshop. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, you might see a window that says, do you want to apply your Lightroom adjustments? You would hit yes. Or do you want to edit the original? No. You want to use your Lightroom adjustments, because if you don't, you're going to go into Adobe Camera Raw, which is really the same as the Develop module in Adobe Lightroom, and you're going to have to redo all these basic adjustments because that's a raw processor. Photoshop can't edit a raw image straight. It has to be converted. So we have converted this and applied stuff to it. So we're going to go ahead and close this out. So you're going to see I've got a bunch of windows, and I also use a custom configuration. So over here are our tools, and you might see your tools like this, and I guarantee you a lot of your tools might be different. I usually have a custom toolbar set up here. If mine don't look just like yours does, it's because mine's set up as a custom one. Now, sometimes I switch back and forth, but we'll get into that. I actually must have been working on an image, so I have two images up. We'll go ahead and close that one out just because we don't need it. And we've got this image. I'm going to hit Command 0 just to make it big so everybody can see what in the world I'm doing. Over here, we've got windows, and any window that you see over here can be opened by going to Window, and anything here with a check mark is going to show up as a window over here. The key ones that we need are Adjustments, Properties, Info, Layers, and History. Those are the main ones I use. This is what we call a contextual taskbar. It's down here on the bottom. It's newer, it moves around. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. The next order of business is I'm not so sure I like the yellow. I just don't like yellow. So we'll have a little fun, and let's go ahead and hit Select Subject. I could just manually select that, but in general, select subjects probably do what I want. Basically, the jacket is the only yellow object. However, there will be some yellow in her hair, most likely. So we're going to come over here to Hue Saturation. In the Hue Saturation, we get Hue, Saturation, and Lightness. I'm going to click on the yellow, and that's going to allow me to adjust yellow. So whatever your color is you want to work on, you usually just select it. And you can see if I go this way, I can make it more towards the blue. If I make it this way, we can go kind of pink and purple and back to a blue. So I can change the color of this jacket by just sliding or adjusting this slider. I can make it more neon, more saturated, or less saturated by going this way. I can make it brighter or darker, depending on which way I go with that. So for right now, that looks pretty good. I'm going to run into an issue, however. I adjusted the jacket and it did change the color of her hair just a little bit. And don't worry if you don't understand what I'm doing. This video is just based on showing you the process of kind of going from Lightroom to Photoshop and then back to Lightroom. So what we have here is a mask, and the mask is just the selection. Whatever you see in white is being applied. So this hue saturation is being applied where that mask is, the white area. Where it's black, it doesn't get applied. That's all a mask does. So we can actually take it out of that location by grabbing a brush in the color black, because black hides, white reveals or shows. And so I can just come in here and kind of carefully paint that out. All right, looks like I got a little bit of the yellow. That's okay. Good enough for right now. So we've changed the color of that. Next, we're going to come in here. We've got this little plant sticking up. Maybe I don't want that plant. I'm going to create a new layer. So this is a blank layer, and the reason I do this on a blank layer is if I change my mind, I can turn these off. So if I wanted to turn this off and make it yellow again, I just turn it off, turn it back on if that's all I wanted. All these layers are what we call non-destructive, meaning that even if I save this image, these layers will still exist. I can come back and adjust them. So if we want to get rid of this, we can simply just grab one of these tools, and I'm going to grab the spot healing brush. I'm going to make this really small. The reason this is working even on a blank layer is because I have up here sample all layers. If I didn't do it, I'll show you what will happen. So if I come in here and I try to remove this, because it's completely blank, yeah, it's not letting me do anything because it's a blank layer. So I need to make sure sample all layers is available, and I can come in here and just remove any item that I want. There are a whole bunch of different ways to remove aspects in Adobe Photoshop. I could also come in here and get rid of that specular highlight that we see on our jacket. Next, I can come in here and even bring out some of this area here. So if I want to open this area up here of greens, we can do two things. I'm going to make a curves adjustment. And when I do this, there's a couple of different ways to do it. And I'm essentially just looking at the area right in here on how I eventually want it to look. I'm going to hit Command I to get rid of it. I'm going to take that same brush that we had here, and this time we're going to have a foreground color of white. So if you remember, I said earlier, white will show an effect and black will hide. So if I paint white into the mask, it's going to show that adjustment of me wanting to brighten this area up. So any areas that I come in here and brush in white at 100%, it's going to brighten that area up. So we can turn that on and off. You can see what I did. Next, we're going to come in here with hue saturation. And this time we're going to take the yellows, and I can warm the yellows up a little bit by going this way. It's going to make them more red. Okay. And I can increase their saturation to make them a little brighter, and then I can click on the greens. I could do the same thing and lighten those up a little bit. I don't like oversaturated colors, so normally I would not do this, but generally you can see what I'm doing. So right here in the pink, if I decide that I don't like the pink, I can turn that off. That little spot is from the clone that we got, so that would be easy for me to take out, and if I turn this off, you can just see that will disappear. If I am okay with the yellow, but maybe I just want to just tone that yellow down and make it not as intense. If we want to go from pink back to yellow, we just need to select that layer where we made that adjustment. And I can slowly adjust this to get it how I want. So I can easily change this, and I can make this a little bit darker, and I can control the saturation. And get this any way I want. So right here, we made that adjustment. I can just go back over it now because it's pink, and it will reapply the correct color. So now we have sort of a softer yellow. With all of this done right here in Photoshop, this will all save, okay? We saved this file. We told Lightroom when we sent this over to use a PSD file. So PSD supports layers. So if I open this back up, we will be able to still edit this. So what I'm going to do is just on my keyboard, Command or Control S, which is save, and we're going to just save this. But watch what happens when we go back into Adobe Lightroom. So we've closed the window in Photoshop. Here's the edited version that we just made. With that selected, if I hit Command D again, this time, instead of editing with the Lightroom adjustments, which is the window, we want to edit the original. It's not really the original raw file, it's the original, it's the PSD that we adjusted. If we hit this, it will get rid of the adjustment layers, but if we hit edit original, it's going to throw this back into Adobe Photoshop, and you're going to see why we call this non-destructive. All these layers are still here. And if I want to turn them all off and start from the beginning, I absolutely can. Well, that's it for how to go from Adobe Lightroom Classic to Adobe Photoshop. In the next series of videos, we're going to go ahead and tackle Adobe Photoshop. So I will take you step by step so you can hopefully clearly understand, because I'm sure at this point it's a little bit overwhelming, especially at the speed that I moved. So this series is Adobe Lightroom Classic to Adobe Photoshop, and it's taking a look at the workflow. And so this is what I mean by workflow. So I'm doing some adjustments in Lightroom and I'm doing some in Photoshop. Look, it's years of experience that it takes to understand what you should do where, and it's also going to be very subjective to each photographer as to what they like to do where. There's no right or wrong reason. If you found this video helpful and could give us a thumbs up, that would be great. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.